What's up guys, Husto7, and today I've got a video to talk about major changes that are coming to Call of Duty World War II. Much needed major changes, in fact. So this game is going to look and feel and play totally different than it did at launch and just a few weeks ago. There's so much to cover. We have changes to score streaks, we have changes to movement, we have balance changes, and most importantly, the thing that I want to spend the bulk of this time covering, and I want to start right off the bat, is the changes that are coming to the divisions. We got a lot to cover, so let's get started. The biggest and most notable change is that all of the special abilities and attachments that were linked to divisions are now no longer linked to those specific divisions. So for example, the bayonet for the Infantry Division, the fire shells for the Expeditionary, or the suppressor for the Airborne are now not locked to those specific divisions. So if you want to run the PPSH and put a suppressor on it, you can, even if you're in the Mountain Division. Or if you want to put a bayonet on your SVT or something, you can put a bayonet on any rifle, even if you're running in the Airborne or the Expeditionary or any division. You're not going to be specifically linked to infantry any longer. Now personally, I think that this is a great change. I think it's going to mix up the in-game meta as well as giving more build diversity. Right now there's a lot of guns that people want to use, but you know, like for example, if I want to run a suppressor, I have to be in the Airborne, but I kind of like running a suppressor paired with the Mountain Division for the kind of sneaky benefits that I get of it. So I actually like to play in the Mountain Division and run SMGs even though I'm not able to run a suppressor. Now, because of this change, I'm going to be able to play any division that I want and still get to use that attachment, that suppressor attachment, since that's just become like a regular attachment that you can put on. So you might be wondering, well, this seems like a nerf because now I have to use an attachment slot for my bayonet or for my suppressor. But actually it's not, because another one of the major changes, probably the second most major change, is that Primed has been completely removed from the game. So Primed, if you guys know, I made a video about it. I thought it was one of the best basic trainings in all of Call of Duty World War II. I used my very first Prestige unlock token on it. Even though they nerfed it, back in the day it used to give a nice reduction to flinch as well as the extra attachment. They nerfed the flinch reduction but still gave a little bit of a flinch reduction and still gave you that extra attachment. Well, now they're just giving you an extra attachment across the board, so you don't have to have a basic training for it, you don't have to have any division for it. Every single creative class that you go into, every single division will now get an extra attachment for your gun. So you can basically create, if you were running with a bayonet or something previously, you can create the exact same class that you used to be using, and now you can attach that bayonet or that suppressor or whatever attachment you need onto that class because you get the extra attachment slot. Now, while we're talking about this, I want to mention that I also like that Primed was removed because it totally, in my opinion, is a crutch perk. I run with Primed on basically every one of my classes, with a few exceptions here and there, but still I think that this is removing a crutch perk from the game and is going to give us more build diversity in all of our creative class slots. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk specifics about what changed to the divisions. I'll go through each one and I'll compare what they used to do versus what they do now. So let's start with Infantry Division. The 4 new tiers now is, the first one is additional primary attachment, which if you remember you used to get at tier 2 in the previous divisions. Now the new tier 2 is second pistol attachment and swap weapons faster. So you get that boost kind of to both, which is kind of nice. The second pistol attachment used to be on the resistance class, but I kind of like, because that was, you know, focused on pistols, but I kind of like that it's moved over to the infantry, since infantry is a class that I use a little bit more. And also switch weapons faster is going to just be a nice thing to have all around. The third thing is, while aiming down the sight, have less idle sway, which you didn't actually used to have. There used to be a basic training that you could get and it didn't stack with snipers, but now this does stack with snipers. So actually using an infantry sniper class is, you know, going to be an okay thing to do because you don't have to worry about not getting the sharpshooter ability from the Mountain Division. Now you get it across all divisions, including infantry. And the fourth thing is move faster while aiming. So move faster while aiming was also the tier 4 as well previously. The thing that we lost from infantry, which used to be the old tier 3, was extra magazines, and that's been moved somewhere else, which I'm kind of bummed about because I actually like the extra magazines on the Infantry Division, but overall I still think that the reworking of the Infantry Division is overall a good thing. The next division is Airborne. So now Airborne, if you remember the old one, you used to get a suppressor at tier 1. Now tier 1 is fire guns while sprinting and diving, which is pretty cool. Again, that used to be a basic training. Now you just get that by default as the Airborne. The second thing is reload while sprinting. Again, also a basic training that now you can just use naturally, so the Airborne is going to be very mobile from these two things. The third thing remains basically untouched. It was climb over obstacles faster. It still is climb over obstacles faster. All they did was add no falling damage, which we did not previously had on the Airborne, so that's kind of a neat thing. And also, like I mentioned, it's going to just kind of contribute to the mobility of the Airborne Division. And finally, Tier 4 has been reworked. It used to just be increased straight sprint speed. We'll talk about sprint here with mobility later because now everyone gets unlimited sprint. But what they did is you sprint faster over time. So you don't just necessarily get a direct increased sprint speed. You start at the base sprint speed, but as you're sprinting for longer distances, it will increase and you'll start to run faster. Now, the reason why we lost the sprint for longer distances Tier 2 ability that we had from the previous version of the Airborne is because now all players are able to sprint for unlimited distances. So you don't have to worry about catching your breath anymore. I am so happy about this. I could make a video talking about this whole change in one thing, but I'm very happy that they added unlimited sprint to all classes because that's going to increase the speed of the games. It's going to get you in firefights sooner, and you don't have to worry about just running around. So that is also one of my favorite changes. Let's go ahead and take it to the next one, which is Armored. Now, Armored probably received the biggest rework of all of the different divisions, so I'm going to take you through what they used to do. The 4 tiers for Armored used to be the bipod on Tier 1, immune to shell shock and tactical equipment on Tier 2, less fire damage on Tier 3, and the nice one for shipment that I would grind out my Armored classes for is take significantly less explosive damage on Tier 4. However, if you take a look at the changes now, with Tier 1, you get the less fire damage and less explosive damage. So you don't have to level up your Armored Division at all. Natively, with the base division, you get the less explosive and less fire damage, which is a pretty big change in addition to all the other big changes that I'm going to talk about in just a second. This is already a huge change to the Armored Division and is definitely going to make the Armored Division a little bit more attractive when you're trying to think about what classes you want to take. Tier 2 is immune to shell shock and tactical equipment. That was the Tier 2 previously, no change there. Tier 3 is increased bullet penetration through surfaces. So that's kind of like getting a free attachment on your gun because you used to have to take an attachment in order to get that increased bullet penetration. But here's where things really change. Now, the Tier 4 is greatly reduced flinch when shot. So Primed used to reduce flinch when shot, and it has basically just been rolled into Armored now. So because Primed is gone, you still get the reduced flinch when you're doing Armored. So reduced flinch is something that has been a topic of discussion in Call of Duty for a long time. It's been done poorly, it's been done well, but they always try to make it something that's not a crutch, but this is where Armored is so different. It's probably going to become, I think, a much more attractive class and maybe even the new meta because you get the less damage from Tier 1, and if you level it up to Tier 4, you get that reduced flinch. And having the reduced flinch is like always helpful because it helps you win gunfights, it helps you stay on target more, and sometimes one shot or few milliseconds is all it takes to be the difference between success or failure in a gunfight. So this is a major change to the Armored Division. Alright, let's move on and take a look at the Mountain Division. The Tier 1 for the Mountain Division is now invisible to recon aircraft as well as player-controlled streaks. So in the old Mountain Division, that was actually the Tier 2 and Tier 3 respectively. Those have now been merged into one and is now your base tier for just using the Mountain Division. Tier 2 is now killed enemies' death locations are not revealed. So when you kill an enemy, there's like a little skull on the map. Now there will not be a skull, so that's kind of contributing to the stealthy gameplay of the Mountain Division, so I think that that's a good change. 3 tier is the no name or reticle change, so the reticle won't turn red when enemies aim at you. Again, that's also kind of a nice thing, and it fits the overall scheme or the archetype of the Mountain Division as being more stealthy. It's not necessarily a sniper division anymore, now it's like a stealth division because that sniper sharpshooter is moved to sniper rifles in general, and you can use any class you want with them. And finally, silent movement remains the Tier 4 slot in the rework as well as it was on the previous version of the division as well. Okay, the next division is Expeditionary, and this one received some pretty big changes as well. So again, we talked about the shotgun incendiary shells. Those are moved to shotguns now. You don't have to take them with the Expeditionary, so you can use those incendiary shells on all shotguns regardless of the division. So the Tier 1 now is double lethal and tactical grenades. Now, the reason you get double, you used to be able to take one of each, is because now all players get a tactical and a lethal. You don't just have to pick one or the other. So again, a great change. I can't tell you that how many classes don't have tacticals, because why would I want to take a tactical when I can use, you know, a sticky bomb, or when I can use an S-mine, or when I can use a grenade? All of these things, in my opinion, and based on my playstyle, are superior to the tactical. So now all players get a tactical grenade and a lethal grenade, but the Expeditionary class gets double, so you get to use 2. The next thing is munitions replenish from enemies that are killed, as well as over time. So I'll have to do some testing to see what as well over time means. That's kind of like a little bit ambiguous, but This is a big change because the resupply from enemies used to be the tier 4 perk from Expeditionary. Now it's moved to tier 2, so it's got a big upgrade there, and it got added that you can resupply ammo over time regardless of whether or not you're killing anyone. So I hope that doesn't contribute to players camping, but again, I'll do some testing and report back once this patch launches on April 10th. The tier 3 slot is improved tacticals and easier to destroy things in war. So again, I don't really play necessarily a lot of war, so I don't know if that's something that will be good or bad. I'll have to do some testing and get back to you. And the improved tacticals just makes it a little bit more efficient. So there have been a bunch of balance changes, including things like the gas and the flares, how long those things last. So now basically the Expeditionary is able to use those things as they would feel now playing with them, because the tacticals actually received pretty much across the board a nerf in terms of their overall effectiveness, but the Expeditionary gets to use them at their full power. So that one, I think, honestly, is probably the least exciting change. Maybe it's going to be really cool because everyone gets a tactical now. I'm not totally sure. I'll have to see how that works out. But overall, I think personally that tier 3 with the improved tacticals is probably the weakest part of the change for Expeditionary. And finally, the best part, on contrast, the best part for the Expeditionary Division is that tier 4 basically gets espionage now. So equipment damage paints enemies on the minimap. Now it's not bullet damage, so it's not true espionage, but you get equipment damage, which is nice because you've got 2 lethals and 2 tacticals and a launcher, which I still haven't even covered. But all of these things you can use to damage opponents, and you can paint them on the minimap, which is so powerful. I made a whole dedicated video talking about how espionage was a great perk in this game, and now with this change you're able to paint enemies on the minimap for you and for your teammates, and I think that that's going to be a great change to Expeditionary and will make this class a little bit more attractive as well. And finally, even though it's the newest division, they also reworked the Resistance Division. So again, the pistol tactical knife is now an attachment, so that has been removed. So the tier 1 is actually a combination of 2 previous tiers. It now says that minimap indicator and scrambles the radar of enemy hostiles. So the minimap indicator actually used to be the tier 4 of the Resistance Division. I think it was the highest, best thing to get. I love that minimap indicator. I used to actually play the Resistance Division just for it, and again, this is a huge buff because now that tier 4 is the base, the tier 1 perk. So just putting the Resistance Division on already gives you that minimap indicator, and the previous tier 2 version was the scramble of the minimap, which from the other patches you can also turn on and off, has now been moved to tier 1. So that's a pretty big change right there. Tier 2 is now enemy movements are easier to hear. So this is pretty neat. I'll have to again do some testing to see how easier it is, but enemy footsteps will be easier to hear, and that's going to be a good thing, and will kind of fit the archetype of, like behind enemy lines with the Resistance. Tier 3 is brand new, and this is really interesting. Again, I don't have a lot to share because I'll have to test it when it comes out, but Tier 3 says that kills and assists grant an intel ping of nearby enemies. So I'm suspecting that it's like how the perk ping used to work way back in the day with Call of Duty Ghosts, where when you would kill someone, you'd actually get like a little minimap blip, and it would highlight enemies on the minimap if they were nearby. I can't say for sure because I haven't seen how this is going to work, but that's the new Tier 3 perk, and I'm excited to see what that could be, and that will be awesome because this Resistance Division is like focused on being behind enemy lines. You can kill people and then see where their friends are right away, so it will prevent you from being swarmed and outgunned. And finally, the new tier 4 is enemies are easier to spot and an increased or larger minimap coverage. Also really cool. They basically took a basic training there and rolled it right into the Resistance since they moved that minimap indicator all the way up to tier 1. So there you have it, guys. I have so many more changes to go over, like huge changes to LMGs and how those work, to changes to score streaks, to changes to movement mechanics, but I gotta cut the video here because it's already getting so long. So we'll make this one just the changes to divisions, and I'll have a few separate videos where I go a little bit more in depth into some of the other changes that are coming to Call of Duty. So there you have it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you want to stay up to date on all of my videos, and check my channel page. The other videos are going to go up right now, so check my channel page if you want to see some of the other changes that are coming to Call of Duty World War II. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I really appreciate it.